Good evening, folks. This is Titus Livius again, and I was asked to make some like a video about Rome's origins, like the city itself and how it started. And I think that's key to understanding it. So here is the legend of Rome. So this time in Roman history is not as solid as the rest of it. A lot of it is conjecture, and a lot of it shares similarities with the Old Testament of the Bible, with the New Testament of the Bible, and other ancient religions of the time. So, according to legend, the person who indirectly founded Rome was a hero in the Trojan Wars called Aeneas. He did not fight for the Greeks, who most of us are familiar with, Odysseus and Achilles and all that. No, he fought against them. And his name was Aeneas, and he is the son of the Greek goddess Aphrodite, goddess of love and whatnot. The Romans called her Venus, so that's what I'm going to refer to as throughout this video and throughout any other future videos. So Aeneas is this Trojan hero, and he is not on the A list of heroes in the Iliad, but he's still successful, and at the last minute he's saved by the goddess Venus, and we don't really hear from him again. There's some fragmented ancient Greek texts about what goes on with Aeneas and how he's rescued, but that's about it. So the Romans had to fill in these gaps, and according to legend, a lot of this is in Virgil's Aeneid, which was used for propaganda for the early empire. Anyway, Aeneas is told by his mom, Venus, that he has to found this magnificent city that'll eventually come to dominate the Mediterranean. And he's like, well, where is it? She's like, Italy. And he's like, what's that? He doesn't know what Italy is, right? He's been living in Asia Minor, what's now Turkey, his whole life. So she tells him to sail west and found this new great place. So he sails on over with some men, and it's a story that's like a blend of Odyssey and the Iliad. I won't get into it too much. But basically, this guy Aeneas comes from Asia Minor, and he lands in North Africa, meets this queen called Dido, and she is in the ancient city of Carthage, which will later go on to become Rome's enemy. He has a thing with her. They may or may not have kids together, according to some versions of it, and then eventually he has to go, because he has to create what would eventually become the city of Rome. He doesn't even really know what the name's going to be yet that much. He's still not sure as to what it's going to be, but he just knows it's his duty from the gods, and he's not going to argue with him, right? So he has to leave her, and it makes him real bummed, and for that reason, Rome has its battle with Carthage later on. That's what Virgil says. It's really convenient, but that's how the legend goes. So Aeneas lands in the central Italian peninsula, has all this infighting with Latin tribes. It's super complicated. I'm not going to get into it right now. But you just got to know that central Italy and southern Italy was inhabited by Latin tribes. It's like the boot part of Italy. Not like what it's kicking. What it's kicking is the island of Sicily, that at the time was actually more Greek than anything. Sicily had Greeks and Carthaginians living on it. It's kind of a whole different thing. Right now we're just in central Italy, where the Latin tribes were. They spoke different versions of the Latin language. Like Umbrian is really close to Latin, and Oscan. Neither of them are spoken anymore. They eventually merged into Latin, but that's what these tribes spoke. Some just spoke Latin, and these were the ones that Aeneas had to interact with, the Latin tribes. North of them was a group of people called the Etruscans, who spoke a really wild ancient language. I've heard arguments that it's either very dissimilar to most Proto-Indo-European languages or isn't. They're supposedly also from Asia Minor, according to actual historical DNA evidence, which is interesting because Aeneas is supposed to have landed there, so maybe there's some truth to the legend. Anyway, this hero Aeneas eventually dies. Old age, happens. Natural causes, right? But eventually, long time after this, he has a great, so on and so forth, grandson. And he is this king called Numitor. And he is in the city where Aeneas was, which is southeast of Rome by about 19 miles. And this city is called Alba Longa. Okay, it's kind of a silly name, but hey, don't blame him for it. They got this city called Alba Longa. Numitor is the king, and he's a solid king. Eventually, his brother, by the name of Romulus, deposes Numitor. He's always been jealous of him. And that whole thing about brothers being jealous of each other is a really ancient trope. In the Bible, you see it with the story of Cain and Abel, and it shows up more than a couple times throughout Rome's early history. Well, actually a literal couple of times. Anyway, though, Romulus does not like Numitor at all. He decides to kill Numitor's son, which would be his rightful claim to the throne, and rightfully so. Numitor is pretty bummed at this. And then using some ancient Latin religious ritual, Numitor declares that the daughter, excuse me, Amulius declares that the daughter of Numitor has to become a type of priestess, which is called a Vestal Virgin. And they have to remain virgins. And in the ancient world, this was a really bad thing to be condemned to, because he can't have his daughter marry into a rich family to maybe make him more prosperous, so he can come back and beat his brother. His brother Amulius wanted to stop this early on. So he has a daughter, right? She's forced to be a Vestal Virgin. Her name is Rhea Silvia, okay? And according to Roman legend, Rhea Silvia is impregnated by the god Mars. Now this is, she's a virgin, but she's impregnated by Mars, and she's still a virgin. This notion is super similar to the notion of Jesus' conception with like the Virgin Mary, according to the Christian Bible. So you can see a clear similarity between those two types of like ancient tradition. In this case, she was impregnated by Mars in an area called the Campus Martius. Here's a poorly drawn map of the city of Rome. Here's Rome, this like line, that's Rome. And then this is the Tiber River, which is a major river that runs right next to it. Southeast is reversed, is Alba Longa. And then up here is the Campus Martius, where she would have been impregnated according to legend. So, eventually, what's his name? Amulius finds out that she has these, she's pregnant, right? She has 2 children. They're twins. And very famously, they're called Romulus and Remus. Now, these twins are both male, which does not work out for Amulius. He doesn't want any claimants to the throne who could be rivals. So he tells his servants to kill the kids. The servants eventually show up, and they see the kids, and they're like, man, these are babies. We're not going to kill babies. So they tell the mom, they're like, hey, we have to take them. We're not going to kill them. Don't worry. So they put the kids in a basket and leave them in the Tiber River, which is a big river in ancient Italy. Like, it's really important, I mean, and it's still there to this day. So leaves them by the river, and they eventually wind up near this cave. Okay, these 2 babies. According to legend, they are then nursed by a female wolf. Some people say it was actually a prostitute named Wolf who nursed them. We don't know. There's no evidence of this. This is just a legend. So what happens is this wolf takes them into the cave. Okay, the cave will later on be called the Lupercal, and it'll be used for like religious ceremonies and stuff. Not important now, but just know it's a thing. So they're raised by this she-wolf, and there's a lot of Roman stuff later on that they dedicate to that she-wolf because they believe that she literally nursed the founders of Rome. So in this story, you can already tell there's a lot of importance on women for being like birth givers and life givers, but not as much else, which is bogus, but that just shows a lot about how the ancient culture would evolve. Eventually, though, this couple comes across Romulus and Remus when they're a little bit older, probably still like under a year old though, and the dad, the guy who became their adopted dad, his name is Faustulus. He has a wife called Acca Laurentia. I'm sorry about the pronunciation. I'm not an expert in classical Latin. I'm sure it would be Faustulus and Acca Laurentia, but yet again, not 100%. Anyway, though, a key thing about this is that Faustulus and his wife were not kings or like a king and queen. They weren't anybody important. They were just he was a shepherd. They were hill people. They were very nomadic. They lived a poor life, and they raised Romulus and Remus. So Romulus and Remus grow up, right? They're becoming really muscular, like really fit-looking dudes, and they are noticeably more intelligent than the average like person chilling out in this hillish area who's just a shepherd, and people take a liking to them. And there's a big suspicion now in Alba Longa that they may be those twins. It's weird that some twins 19 miles away would be super strong and apparently share a resemblance to Numitor, who is deposed and just kind of sad at his lot in life. So eventually, Remus has this dispute in Alba Longa with the king Amulius. Romulus' brother is mad at this. He's like, my brother's a great guy, and then he hears from this guy Numitor that that's actually his grandpa. He doesn't know whether to believe this, but eventually decides to go with it. And him and Numitor team up to start like a free Remus campaign. You know how like celebrities get caught doing stuff. People are like, oh, free blank. Kind of the same thing, but super ancient. For the record, guys want to know some years? Aeneas's travels to Italy were supposed to be 1,100 years like BC or BCE. And then this story that I'm talking about, Romulus and Remus, is the 700s, mid-700s BC. It's like 760s or so BC. So there's this campaign now to free Remus. And Romulus gathers this massive force of men, these hill folk, these people, and it's important that the king is already seeing the will of the people early on, because that's a common theme in Roman government. Even as a kingdom, Rome would have a senate. We'll get to that later, but they did. It's emphasizing an early importance upon the people. So Romulus has this big force, right? He's working with his grandpa Numitor. More people are getting behind Numitor. And Numitor was weak before, but now that he had this strong young man who was very charismatic and likable with him, the two of them stormed Alba Longa, and they had this epic fight. They fought in the ancient style where you have a sword and a shield or whatever, and it's just one-on-one glorious combat. And somebody kills Amulius, presumably Romulus, but we don't really know. So they kill Amulius, and then Numitor is reinstated, and then Remus is now free. I'm going to leave off the video right around here. Romulus and Remus are these two brothers, young men, probably early 20s, we can assume. Now, they are on equal footing. They're both highly revered because they're related to what is now, once again, the king of Alba Longa. Alba Longa is not their lot in life. There's no social mobility there. So they decide to head west with this massive force of men. They eventually make their way to the place where they were found on the Tyre River, right by a hill called the Palatine Hill. That's where they're supposedly found. Now, under the Palatine Hill is where the cave was, where they were raised by the she-wolf. Eventually, Romulus and Remus start discussing where and if they should create a city in this area. Now, clearly, two men, not frequently, can hold on to power equally. Usually some sort of dispute is going to arise. I urge that you watch the next video to find out what goes on. There's a hint. The city's not called Rome. It's called Rome. The ensuing conflicts will shape how the Romans view their military, how they view their religion, what they name things after, and so on and so forth. So basically, at this point, I'm going to leave off with the brothers just found their old place where the cave was. Romulus wants to found this new city on the Palatine Hill, right where they were raised. There's this other hill called the Aventine, and Remus thinks that's a better place to start their new great city. Hope you check out the next video. Hope this was somewhat informative. Like and subscribe, I guess. I say that now. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate my 4 subscribers. Thanks, folks. Watch the next one.